How you doing, guys? Today I'm working on the Senior. My hope is to be able to get the front axle bar off and the steering bars off the tractor. That way we can take a look at them and assess the damage and what's going to be needed to fix them. Right off the bat, you can see the drag link going across the front of the tractor is bent, so we're going to have to straighten that out. The first thing I need to do, or the first thing I started doing, because I did do a few things already, is to get the end links on the steering bar right there, as well as the drag link right here, free. And I did run into a little bit of an issue with that. I mean, you can see how bad these nuts are rusted, or rotted, I should say. And these were the ones that were actually holding the end links in place. So basically all the nuts look like that. So it was a little bit of a bear, but they came off, and I just used the pickle fork here to separate them from the steering blocks, if that's what, I guess that's what you would call it. So once I get those out of the way, the next thing I need to do is to get this big square nut. You see this big square bolt right here in the front of the tractor, that one. That needs to be broken free and taken out. So just to show you what we're going to be working with here underneath the tractor, I'm going to just get this, and I'm going to get my professional lighting here, my flashlight actually, and show you what we're going to be working with. So basically that big bolt runs through the front tube and then comes back to this position right here, and then there's a big huge square nut. Now right there, right in the center, you can see a line that goes along the big tube and the little tube coming out. That's a crack. The actual axle's broken right there, so that needs to be fixed and welded at minimum. Well, you know that the spindle on that side needs to be recreated. But right now, the big project is to get this square nut free and to pull that bolt out, so that way we can drop this axle out from the frame. Hopefully it won't be that big of a deal, but it is kind of crusty under there. So let me get to, I'll probably have to hit it with the torch a little bit, and then I'll have to find some wrenches that fit those square nuts, and I will be right back. Okay, with the steering bars out of the way, they're laying right there on the floor. They came off very easy. I would have thought that they would fight me pretty bad, seeing that they've been out in the weather for God knows how many years. Next, I started to try to remove the main big bolt, but the one thing that was in the way is this bracket. And what this bracket is that is an original bracket for a plow, like a push plow, or a push blade, I should say, for a Senior. Obviously, I don't have that attachment, but this tractor did have one at one time, because this is the bracket that I believe the chain hangs off of. I'm not quite sure how it works with the plow, but I do know it was for a plow. And basically what I did was I just unloosened the bolts. These bolts don't appear to be the correct bolts for the bracket. I took the nuts off earlier. They're just regular carriage bolts. And like most of the bolts that I've found on this tractor thus far, they're bent. They're bent. Sorry. They're all bent. So we're going to file these under the letter L for landfill, because I'm not going to use those. And the bracket itself, it's still in pretty good shape. It's a little bent up, so this will need to be kind of straightened out. I don't know exactly how I'm going to straighten it out. I mean, obviously I'll use a torch, but right now this is going to get put aside because I really don't need that, or that's just in the way. So now I have a clear, area to work with in order to get this bolt done. I will have to be careful because, as I said, it's cracked. The main tube is cracked. So when I lower it down, I'm just going to have to be kind of mindful that, it just doesn't fall out of the tractor. Okay, so I learned something new every day. Number one, the bolt that was here just came right off. I did put a little penetrating oil on it before I started to back it out, and it came right off. It's actually right there on the floor. Absolutely no issue whatsoever. So then I started to tap on the end of the bolt here to see if it would slide through, and it wouldn't. And the reason, and oops, sorry, I'm trying to just hold my camera a little differently, I apologize. What I learned is that bolt is actually threaded into this plate. That big plate right there, that is threaded for that bolt. So I need to actually unthread it. As you can see, it's sticking out right there from this end. Kind of interesting. I didn't expect that, but you know, little tidbits that you learn on the way. So just if you have a senior and you're looking to take apart that axle, just keep in mind it appears that wheel horse threaded that plate. With the front axle bar on these jack stands. Now I have it on the jack stands only because it's just an easy way for me to keep it kind of stable while I talk. It's not because it's heavy or anything to that effect. It's actually kind of light, to be honest with you, but just so we can document exactly what I have here. And I'm not necessarily going to talk about what needs to be done in this portion of the video, but just wanted to take a look at what is here for documentation purposes. Obviously, there's the big bolt that went through the frame and the back plate, actually threaded into the back plate. The nut for that bolt and lock washer is right there. And to be honest with you, the bolt's bent, so I'm probably either going to have to straighten it or try to find another one. In any event, there is the bolt. We have the bad spindle. We know that whole section's got to come apart. We have the good spindle. That's still going to need some work on it. And then we have the center bolt, I guess, pivot, which is interesting because, as I said, it's cracked, and there it is. As you can tell, it cracked right off the main axle tube. The thing that I didn't know is when you take this apart, slide this out, there's actually a bushing, like a steel bushing that slid into this tube. And you can actually see there's a bronze bushing right there, right between the two of them, as well as there's a bronze bushing sticking out right there. Kind of interesting. Actually very interesting. And if you slide this, it's the bronze bushing slides on that shaft. So looks like we're going to have to get a couple bronze bushings. This has to be cleaned up and re-welded. I'm actually just going to push this back. Just going to push this back real quick so you can see how. And then that thing, this whole assembly, or at least that tube, would have slid through the two bronze bushings and then into the front bushing here. I'm just going to let it sit there, and then I'm going to have to obviously clean this and weld it up. I might actually just put a piece of steel across the top of this and re-weld it all in so that way it's supported a little bit, but that's for a later date. I just thought I would show you what the front bar looks like prior to me tearing it all apart. Now, these upper, I guess, knuckles, they are absolutely fuse welded to the tops of the spindles. So look at this one. Sweet Jesus. So I don't think I'm going to get away with being lucky. I'm trying to remove these. I'll probably have to cut the bars, or cut the spindle bar, and then basically drill that out, clean it up in order to save those, because I don't really want to remake them. I'm going to try to save them. All right, first things first. Got to get that center bar piece out and cleaned up so that way we can stop, dropping grease everywhere. So it looks as if I'm going to have to cut these bars that go straight down to the spindles. I guess the steering bars, you would call them, that go from the top piece here down to the wheel itself. And in order to get, in order to get the right angle, what I did was I'm lining up my protractor with the center of the main bar and just trying to level it out with the edge of the spindle and kind of taking a rough angle here, which is, it looks like it's going to be about 67 degrees off of the spindle itself. So if we hold the camera right there, you can see the edge of the protractor is right along with the edge of the spindle. I am in about the center of the main bar, and it's reading about 67 degrees. So I'll be able to put these both back at about 67 degrees, and it should be fairly close to the original. I think close enough where nobody would notice that they've been messed with. My brother has a senior, and I have a couple other individuals that have seniors, so I'll take a look at theirs before I put it all back together. But there's no way I'm going to be able to get these separated. So let's get to cutting. The first spindle cut and taken out, what we see is that there is a good-sized bushing, bronze bushing at the top of the spindle bar, I guess you would call it. And there's also another one here at the other end where the spindle actually, where the wheel actually attaches. And they look pretty good. They look like they're in pretty good shape. I may not have to replace them. Obviously, I'm going to measure them and make sure. The spindle itself is right here, and you can see where I made the cut. I actually cut it pretty good. Doesn't look like I touched too much. Doesn't look like I marred this area up. Just a little tiny touch right there, but I could probably clean it. I'll clean it up with a file eventually. The one thing that's so interesting is look how bad this is. I mean, I wish I could get it. Let me get it to focus. There it is. That's not oil pouring down this. That's not oil. That's actually weld. I don't know who, how, or what they use to weld this. But let me tell you, this thing is destroyed. I was hoping to get away with just kind of like cutting off the bottom of it and then redoing this, but I think it's so messed up. Even the backing plate washers all folded over. Obviously, this square bolt is junk, but I mean, I don't think this can be saved because I have to replace the top piece at least. That really kind of sucks. But I have the other spindle to use as a template. That one on this end here. I'm not going to take that. I'm not going to cut that one off quite yet. I'm going to try to remove this bar out of the knuckle piece, I guess you'd call it, first. And then once I do that, then I'll figure out how I'm going to redo this spindle. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Not a whole lot of action here, but we did make progress. We are moving forward. I just want to make sure I do this kind of slow and methodical. That way, when I put this back together, it will absolutely appear original and, you know, it didn't go through this, because that's ultimately the goal. Well, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give it a thumbs up. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell if you would, please, so that way you get notified of my upcoming videos. Looks like it's coming along. Have a great day, guys. Thank you.